Today we'll be starting onions indoors, and in just a short time they will go from this into this. And we will discuss which type of onions are best to plant for you depending on where you live. You can sort of come join me, see how I do it, so we should go ahead and get started. Welcome to True Freedom Permaculture, where we discuss natural living and how to have a green thumb even if you weren't born with one. I have my potting soil. Make sure that you are using a sterile soil because you don't want little weeds or any other plants coming up in between your onions. It's just going to make things more difficult. So sterile potting soil, this is organic, is best. And you're also going to need some water. Now, I won't go too much into this because I've discussed it in other videos, but I am going to moisten my soil before I even put it into my container. So let's go ahead and do that. And as I'm mixing this up, let's talk about which type of onion to plant, because there are different varieties. You're going to see the terms short day and long day and even intermediate day. And if you're wondering, well, which one do I plant? How do I know, which one I need for where I live? You want to ignore your growing zone, but rather look at the latitude where you live. So that is determined at about 36 degrees latitude, which is basically like if you drew a line from in between North and South Carolina, and then you took that line and you went all the way to California. I guess for you it'd be this way, all the way to California. So anything below that would be short day varieties. Anything above that line, like where I live in New York, we are well into long day variety territory. Now there's also something called intermediate day. Also, they're called day neutral. So if you've heard of that, they're the same thing. And those tend to do well in almost any area. And if you're kind of like in between, if you're on that line at 36 degrees latitude, then intermediate day onions might be a good choice for you. Now, there's pros and cons of each type of onion. The short day onions tend to be sweeter. They also have higher moisture content, but that also means that they do not store as well. So if you want a better storing variety, you are looking at long day onions. Onion growth is basically broken up into two different phases. So you have the green tops, which if you only buy onions from the store, you might have never seen them, but they look like scallions really. And excuse the fingers, but come to the territory. But the cold weather stimulates the leaf growth. The warmer weather triggers the bulb growth. And so for the different varieties of onions, it has to hit a certain number of hours of daylight in order to trigger that bulb growth. Now, each leaf will turn into one layer of onion. So the more leaves, the larger the onion you're going to have, because the more layers there are to it. So that's why it's important that you make sure that you have the right variety for where you live. So short day onions, they are going to require days up about I'd say 10 to 12 hours of daylight in order to trigger that bulb growth. And then intermediate day onions, about 12 to 14. Long day, 14 to 16. So, if you, for example, if you have a short day onion, but you live in the northern part of the US, like if I were to plant one here, you are just going to have really rapid bulb development. And that's not always a good thing. The reason why is if the onion starts producing a bulb too soon, then it's not going to have enough time to grow the green top. So that means you're going to be left with tiny onions because you don't have that many leaves. Now, on the flip side, if you are living in the southern part of the US and you have a long day onion, you're just going to grow lots and lots of leaves, but you're never going to hit that 14-hour daylight requirement in order to start producing those bulbs. All right, I have the consistency that I want, so I'm going to go ahead and start filling up my containers. Now, for today, and don't come for me because I know some of you are going to be like, you're using a dirty container. And I know I should wash them out and sterilize them, and I just didn't. So to be honest, I never do that, and I have yet to see any drastic fallout from that. So this is my scallion container, and this is my onion container. Oh, and onion seeds, they do not store well, because sometimes I think that those the timelines that they give for how long the seeds are good for are bold-faced lies, and they actually last for a lot longer. But onion seeds, I really find that, like, I've tried this multiple times, that if I try to use them the next year, they just do not germinate. So I do buy new onion seeds every year. And the scallion one is a lot smaller because I'm not going to start all of my scallions at once. I'm going to succession sow them because I don't want like a whole bunch of scallions just ready for me to harvest. I like to use them throughout the growing season. So I am going to just, every few weeks plant a new bunch. So I'm getting a small one started today so I can have an early crop to look forward to in the spring. Okay, so I've tamped the soil down. Soil line is pretty close to the top, but not quite near the top because I'm going to do the seeds and another little layer of soil. So let me get my seeds. Where did I put those? They're right here. Okay. So today I'm sowing from a local seed company. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I really like them. New York Early Onions. And these are long day onions. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on. If you've never seen onion seeds before, they're really cool looking, and they have, I don't know, they're kind of like rough around the edges, and you might have actually eaten them on top of a bagel or something like that. Now I'm just going to sprinkle these on, and I'm kind of holding up this tray just so you can see it. Just evenly spreading them out. And it says there's about 100 seeds in this packet, which is good for us. I mean, to be honest, we could really, we go through like an onion a day, so we could use more, but when you have limited space, there's only so much that you can grow. And I like onion seeds because they're not teeny tiny like some seeds can be really difficult to work with. So onion seeds are on top, and I'm going to go ahead and put another thin layer of soil over the top of the seeds. Oh, I just dropped like half of that onto the ground. Good thing we're in the greenhouse. Onions are ready, so I'm going to go ahead and take this inside. I'm going to set it in a place in sort of like the back of my house that gets southern exposure, so full sun, where they're going to stay relatively warm, and they will germinate, and then they will be ready for me to transplant out in the spring. So I've gotten this already a little mucked up, but these are the evergreen scallions, so again from Hudson Valley Seed Company, and these are what I'm going to plant today as well. So I know it's kind of hard to see because they're black seeds against the dark soil, but I've scattered them somewhat evenly in my container. And again, similar to the onions, I am going to go ahead and put a thin layer of soil over the top. Now I've brought my seedlings inside, and something I wanted to share with you too is that this is a great use of old food containers. So I was actually going to poke drainage holes in this because I realized I did not do that beforehand. So if you're going to do that beforehand. And I ended up cracking it on the bottom. I don't want to tip everything out, so I can't really show you, but that's okay. It's just like one big crack now. The soil's, it's not like large enough for the soil to fall through. It's still draining water, and I'm letting it drip onto my sage plant beneath until I get something to go under it like I have for the scallions. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. So do put drainage holes in it so the seeds don't rot from standing in too much water if you accidentally overwater them. It's just a good best practice to do, but make sure you do it before you fill it with soil. That will be something better than what I did this time around. So now, although we are in a sunny part of my home, the sun doesn't really matter until the onions start growing until you see those little green, you'll see little green arches, because nothing is getting the sunlight. The sun right now is basically just functioning to warm these things up. So in an effort to increase the warmth and speed up the germination of the onions, you simply, and again, this is just an old food container lid and it's cracked, so it's kind of perfect. Let some moisture through a little bit. I'm putting it on top, and you'll notice it's not a perfect fit. You know, some of the corners are exposed and whatnot, but it's still going to do the trick. You're still going to see the condensation build up on the top of it. It's going to keep the moisture in. It's going to keep the temperatures up. So that is how I'm going to leave that. Is it pretty? No, but it is functional and it will work. So this lid here, I'm going to put on top. Again, this is an old one, cracked, perfect. Just throw it on top of there. I'm not putting it on tightly. I am going to leave it loose like that so moisture is allowed to come through a little bit. So we will leave these here until they germinate. Here are the onions that I seeded just a few days later, and you can see what I was talking about with the condensation building up on the top, so we know that it is doing its job of holding the moisture in. So we've got that one, and then even this one where the lid is not a perfect match for the container, we still have condensation built up on this one too. Now, obviously, I don't have the time to show you the final result of the onions that I seeded in this video, but this is a picture of my onion harvest from a couple years ago before I let the onion skins cure. And I'm hoping to have a similar result this year. So fingers crossed. And if you all are growing onions, good luck to you too. And if you want to continue sort of journeying together in these garden adventures, then feel free to subscribe. We'd love to have you. See you all again soon.